Welcome back, everybody, to We Know Texas Vino. I am your host, Will, and it's kind of weird. I have to look at the camera over this way because it's out of the corner of my shoulder here, but it is what it is. We're trying to get a good shot here. So we are today at Hawk Shadow Winery, and where's this at, actually?
It's Dripping Springs, just kind of north of Dripping Springs.
Okay.
Out in Hayes County.
Okay. I love Dripping Springs because of Deep Eddy. I'm sorry.
That's a pretty popular spot.
It's a great spot.
Name drop that one. I'm sorry. But I'm out here with Matt and Doug. Doug, you're the owner, correct?
Yeah.
And then Matt is the assistant.
Yeah.
Okay.
Doug is the owner, the electrician, the plumber, pretty much everything.
Jack of all trades.
So,
well, welcome to the show.
Okay. Yeah, my brother's going to join us here in a minute too.
His name is Tom,
and he's one of my partners.
Awesome. Okay. Well, before we dig into the show, I just want to tell everybody where they can find us. You can find us out on WeKnowTexasVino.wine, also on Facebook, and also on Spotify, Pandora, wherever you get your podcasting platforms at, and on YouTube at We Know Texas Vino. So we're going to dig into this. I love the story that y'all have, but before we get to the name and the background of the winery, why wine? Why did you choose to get into the wine industry?
This ripples back to my previous career, which I did computer engineering as a real life work.
Okay.
Worked for Lockheed for a number of years. As it happened, my brother was working for Silicon Graphics back in that day as well. He lives in Houston. I lived here. We both commuted to California on a regular basis,
okay.
Like a couple times a month kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
And so we would be out there often together. And Tom actually got involved in this. It was a wine tasting group out in California. We got to know winery owners, winemakers, and so forth in California. And as a byproduct, we got more and more involved
mm-hmm.
in collecting wine, buying wine, drinking wine. And so that kind of blossomed into this whole, as I'm getting ready to retire, what do you do? Had a really good mentor. And he was Jim White. He was kind of a motivating factor to, figure out what you're going to do when you retire. Because Guess what? You can't just go sit on the couch and watch TV. You got to do something else.
Yeah.
Now, the Vineyard turned into the winery. And then we've always had horses forever.
Mm-hmm.
We do some breeding quarter horses as well. And so I don't have a boring life. But that's kind of how the wine thing got started.
Okay.
We decided to put a vineyard in 2005.
Okay.
Up by the house. And then after we harvested a couple of times, sold those grapes, actually made some pretty good wine. So we went, crap, I guess we'll have to do a winery. So we started out just kind of doing something really small and not messing with a whole lot. And then that turned into, when I designed it, I designed the whole facility as though we were going to expand. But it was one of those, like a lot of things, these cost millions of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to write the checks for all those real quick.
Well, what is the saying? To make $1 million in the wine industry, you just got to spend $2.
Yeah, more like 10. But yeah, that's kind of what it comes down to. But anyway, we really got into wine, and like I was telling you before, when I built our house out here, I put a cellar underneath our master bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
We still have probably between my brother and I store some of Matt's wine and my brother-in-law. So there's probably in Barbara and Miguel, there's, I think, well north of 3,000 bottles down there.
Wow. So you said Barbara and Miguel from Siboney.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So they're very close friends.
Okay.
As well as Ben and Victoria.
So, okay. Yeah. Awesome. So, Matt, how did you get into this? I mean, I know you just didn't wake up one day and say,
my career path back in the past was a dive master over at Scuba Shop for 9 years over at Scuba Land in Austin. And I was also a scientific diver over at Spring Lake for just a little bit there, helping out with the environment. But slowly, my degree was actually photography, so a completely different field as well.
Wow.
But my father worked with Carol, Doug's wife, at Lockheed Martin in the 90s. And I used to come out here occasionally to help bottle and just do some odd and end things. And Doug offered me a job actually in the pandemic.
Wow.
So I knew nothing about wine at all, except for it's red, white, rosé, or here's the alcohol percentage, and this is where it's at.
Right.
And slowly it's developed into a passion. And of course, now storing wine at Doug's house and having a wine fridge and way too much wine.
I definitely know that. That's a problem, ain't it? Or not a problem, however you want to see it.
It's a plus and minus. Yeah.
It's a plus and minus, yes.
Well, you know, we all have a passion that we start somewhere. You know, you and I have a similar backgrounds from IT, you know, and for me, the rat race of being on a computer all day long, it gets kind of mundane. You know, it's the same thing. You get up, get on a computer, do your job, go back to bed, you know, but with wine, it's never the same thing twice. And I found in my personal experience that talking to the people in the industry, even making my own wine, it's an adventure some days. And then some days it's just like, why did I even think about doing this?
Oh, there's a lot of those days. Yeah, it's, you know, for every success, there's always a failure or two along the way of things. And, you know, part of that is just adapting and, you know, you've got to be patient in this business.
Right.
That I think is one of the biggest handicaps or challenges is probably a better description.
Yep.
For most people is, you know, it's other than harvest, it's mostly a waiting game.
Mm-hmm. It's the hurry up and wait process.
And and so if you're not able to do that, it's really a challenge.
Yeah. It's, you know, and a lot of people have come into the taster room, and I don't know about the people that come to y'all's taster room, but I know the people that come in, they ask me, well, how long does it take to make one barrel of wine? And I said, well, it depends on what you're looking for. I mean, you can hold it for a year and then you can release it, but if it's not ready, you may have to wait another year or 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 or whatever to get that profile that you're looking for. And they looked at me and they're like, yeah, I can't do that.
Yeah, I would say our average barrel aging for most of our wines is about 36 months.
Wow.
So we're significantly longer than most folks in the U.S., actually, in general.
Right.
But we find, and it varies from wine to wine, but we definitely find that, you know, if you wait and you'll be rewarded. Right. Because it brings the complexity and sophistication that you can't get. But part of that is we're, you know, by having the cellar, you know, our humidity stays high, our temperature stays stable. It allows us to age our wines in a very ideal environment, which means that we can do it longer than a lot of places. Right.
Well, and while we're talking about your cellar here, by the way, very beautiful cellar. And as the folks that see in this video, this is a big limestone underground cellar. Now, before we get to talking about that, how did you come across this place right here? Because when I pulled in and I walked on the patio and I saw that amazing view, I just wanted to sit there and drink wine all day long and never, ever move. And I'm not talking about going home either. I'm just talking about parking it right there, put a hammock and everything there.
Yeah. So kind of a long story there in that, but I'll try to make that quick. So we had horses. We had leased some property up off Dessau Road in North Austin. And then this was around 85, they ended up selling that property. And so we lost the lease on that. We had to move our animals. About the same time, a couple of friends had purchased this property and they didn't really have any plans for it. We lived in Oak Hill at the time. And so this was actually nice and close for us, so to speak. And they were good. We could keep their ag exemption up that way. And so we leased the property. And then in 89, and for those people who lived in Austin from 85 to 89, real estate was kind of a little bit of a struggle.
Right.
And so I think they were ready to try to, get rid of the property, and asked me if I was interested in buying it. I went, sure. By the time I'd ridden most of the property, and I went, yeah, I think this would be a beautiful place to have. So anyway, we ended up buying it. I purchased it, most of it in 89, then a few other add-ons over a little bit of time. But back then it was just raw land, a bunch of cedar and brush. So what you see today was probably close to a 10-year effort of clearing brush and cleaning stuff up and getting things done.
Wow.
As anybody in the hill country can tell you, it takes a lot of time to get all this stuff cleared.
Well, I know when I first pulled in and I got out of the truck, the first thing I smelled, and it actually took me back to my childhood days at Possum Kingdom Lake, is the cedar. Man, big old smell of cedar. And I love that smell. And it just, you smell things and it takes you back to a different time and place. And I always say wine does that too. You can smell wine and it takes you to a different time and place. It's the most cheapest form of time travel.
Yeah, it's very true. Having tried wine from, we not only make wine, but we also try wine and drink wine from all over the world. And as a byproduct, we taste these wines and we're like, okay, remember we were drinking this wine when we had dinner in, 94 at this restaurant in California, and this tastes just like that cab or whatever that we had. And so, it does bring you back. Or, in Europe, we were in Bordeaux, we had this wine, and it's like, this was very close to that.
Oh, yeah. And it's, I love that. Our smells and our taste buds do that to us all the time. And I think that's why a lot of people who are really into wine enjoy that feeling. I know I do. I mean, in fact, actually, some of the other day on the tasting note, it said, or they asked me, how do you taste asphalt? And I was like, well, somebody went outside and looked at the asphalt is what they did. But I actually had an epiphany one day, working in Grapevine last year, and it was a very hot day, and it came with those micro rain bursts, and it hit the asphalt, and the steam came off, and I smelled that asphalt, and I was like, oh, that's what asphalt tastes like.
Yeah, I mean, you don't see as much that. Oftentimes for wines, you get a lot of this wet stone.
Yeah.
And as a characteristic, especially in the finish of wine.
Yep.
And so, if you've ever smelled like limestone when it gets wet,
that's
or licked a rock, then you kind of
I may have licked one or two as a young child.
You kind of get that mineral driven kind of side to
right.
it.
Yeah. So you found this place, you bought it, you got a nice little view. Now, of all the places on this property, how did you come up with this view right here? And I'm going to take some pictures and post it with this video because, I could talk about it all day long, but just the awness of this. And I'm going to put dollars to it that this is probably some of the best sunsets you'll see out here, even though the sun is actually a little bit off here.
It's actually that way, but yeah.
Oh, it's that way.
But we do get nice sunsets, but they're more long shadows.
Okay.
So there's a photo up in there that Matt took of a wedding.
Okay.
Kind of towards sunset. You can just see the clouds and then the shadows move across. And it's especially in August, you really don't want the sun facing you, but the nice shadows really are nice.
Nice. Again, I'm going to have to take some pictures. I'll have to put it with this video here because it doesn't do justice if I'm sitting here talking about it. It needs to have some pictures taken. And so amazing view. So now you found your place where you're going to have your tasting room, and you decided you're going to build this tasting room. Now, let's first talk about the cellar that we're in. Now, you told me it took you, 2 months?
It took about 2 months to excavate this.
And it's all blasted.
We actually used, because our well is not too far away, we actually had a friend dig this with a hoe ram. So it's a, excuse me, backhoe with big hammer on it. And so he would just, cut into, and he was really good. So he would cut into the rock, and then we just peeled it layer by layer.
Okay.
And then we repurposed actually all of the rock, so we didn't have to haul any of it off. We repurposed all of that to build and level this area where there's like the pergola and road and stuff out there. All that is actually fill that came out of here.
Okay, so and I can't show it on the video, but I can actually see where you're talking about now in the walls. Yeah. And it gives it characteristic. I like that. I really do.
Yeah, and it's wonderful because you can see, especially because we've had some rain lately, the water that comes through the limestone provides this constant source of humidity. And we don't humidify the room at all. Right. It's just all from the limestone. And so we have places where we leak water into this room almost year round. Okay.
I have to ask, do you drink that water?
No.
I mean, it is filtered.
It is filtered. But now it tends to make stalactites and stalagmite thingies on, the calcium carbonate deposits there. But now
it's better for photos and videos to watch.
Yeah, it's better to watch than to drink, I think, at this point.
It's kind of smoothing atmosphere then.
Okay, that's awesome.
I have to admit, nobody's asked that. Yes.
I mean, it's filtered water. I mean, you're right. It's I mean, you can probably grab it and filter it out a little bit more and, say, here, drink this.
First time right out of the cellar. There you go.
It's the first time I've heard.
You drink water, go down to the cellar and get it off the wall.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's better than licking the wall.
We won't talk about that part. So when you found this place out here and you started coming out here, what was your thought of coming out here? Because you said you came out here and you started bottling out here, or was you doing it somewhere else?
Helped up top where we gravity feed everything down to a 12 bottler unit. But just a magical place. You never get tired of the view. It's ever changing. It's a lot better than working a cubicle. Or just
it is. Yeah. It's less stressful. Oh, hang on. Let me rephrase that question. It's not as stressful. It's a different type of stress. It's a heat stress. It's like, crap, I just spilled a bottle of wine on the ground.
Gets you back into nature. Yeah, really.
We've dropped a few from time to time. But yeah, so the whole facility is actually designed. It's modeled after places in Europe.
Okay.
Like in Burgundy, they have a lot of limestone hills over there as well. And so they use, and this goes back to, probably the Roman days. Anyway, they used the hillsides. And so we did the same kind of thing here where we went into the hillside and we used 3 different levels. And there's about, roughly 15, 20 feet between levels. And that allows us to do all of our production just using gravity. So that's, since wine's a colloid, it's fairly fragile. This allows us to do, even for sterile filtering, people told me that you couldn't do that. Well, guess what? We really can.
I guess that's the famous Texas phrase, hold my beer and watch me.
Or the easiest way to get an engineer to do something is to tell them they can't do it. And they'll figure out a way.
Hey, you know what? I resemble that remark.
So all of our production is done without ever using a pump.
Valley Mills does the exact same thing. He's got 3 floors and everything starts at the crush pad on the first floor, and everything, he's got a drain in the middle of the floor that goes to the second floor where he goes and puts it into the tanks. And then when he gets ready to bottle, it goes down to the 3rd floor. And I didn't really think about this. But doing that, you allow less oxygen in because you're not using a pump. So the pump puts oxygen into it. So there's less oxygen being presented into the wine. You're pumping it. You're not doing any kind of additional help. You're letting it do its own self.
And you don't have cavitation. You don't have a lot of high pressure things. So there's a lot of value. I mean, they've used that making wine all over the world for 1,000 years.
And I didn't really think about that until I went to Valley Mills, and I was like, that's pure genius. You're not using any extra stuff. You're allowing the wine to do its own thing, and that's pretty smart.
It also helps from a sanitation perspective.
Yeah.
It's really the more mechanical things that you put in the mix, the more opportunities there are for bacteria to get into something. And then you've got some serious problems. So the simpler it is, the easier it is to make sure that everything is sanitized.
Yeah. Yep. So I'm going to go back a little bit. So this whole area that we're on right now, is this all limestone?
Yes.
So your vineyard is actually built into limestone?
Yes. Both of them.
Okay.
So there's one up by our house, and then there's a couple acres down below us.
Okay. And so did you have to actually drill through that limestone to get it down to the soil, or are you just planting it right on top of that limestone?
There is no drilling down to get to the soil for the most part.
Oh.
Unless you want to drill a long way. So it's mostly limestone down there on the vineyard down the hill a little bit more. We have more organic material.
Okay.
Just because whatever organic material is up here slowly washes down and deposits on that terrace. And so there is more organic mass down there.
Oh.
The vineyard up on top is pretty much just all solid limestone.
Okay.
We actually rock sod a lot of the rows to put some of those vines in.
Okay.
We generally use an excavator, is what we use now. And so I have a Mini X that we use to just, go in and break up the rock and create a hole big enough to put a grapevine in.
Interesting. So there's a winery up in Fort Worth called Dove Ridge, and up on the side of their little hill where they got a little event center at the top, they actually drilled holes through their limestone and planted their vines in through it. And I was like, I'd never thought about that before. And they've actually planted, I think it is Pinot Grigio and Viognier in that. And that extra, pH that the limestone provides actually enhances that flavor. And I never really thought about that. So with that being said, what do you have planted on your vineyards?
Right now we have what's left from 21 is Tempranillo and Movedra. So those two survived the Snowmageddon in 21.
Okay.
So that vineyard was put in 05, and so those vines go back. They're
20 years old.
20 years old.
Wow.
Now. We had to rip out some Syrah, Grenache, and Sangiovese, which we had up there. Most of that died in the Snowmageddon freeze in 21.
Okay.
We got down to 2 degrees here. Problem was we were in the upper 70s, 80s the week before.
Right.
So the vines, Sangiovese was always our first bud break, and so it did not do well.
Yeah.
So we've gone back and planted Cabernet Sauvignon 08, Cabernet Sauvignon Clone 47, Cab Franc Clone 11, and Merlot Clone 15.
Okay.
So we're going to try more Bordeaux varietals and see where those go.
Nice. So are you going to do a Meritage out of all that?
So we'll probably do some kind of Bordeaux blend. Yeah.
Okay. I know I've started loving Meritage. When I first started drinking it, I wasn't a big fan of it, but the more I drink it, the more I taste it, I'm starting to really enjoy it a lot more. And when I find a good Meritage, I usually try to cling on to it really close because I just like that. I like that taste. I love the finish that it comes off with. So how many acres you have under vine right now, you said?
It's about We have about 7 acres roughly.
Okay. Not too bad.
So about 5 up by our house and a couple acres down here.
Not too bad. Okay. Awesome. So do you enjoy harvesting?
Depends upon the day, but
we start. I had to throw that at you like that because
it's fun.
Honestly, I don't know about you, and I don't know about you, Doug, either. I find harvesting and even going out working in the vineyard kind of therapeutic because you can take all your anger and frustration out of the day on the vines, and they don't talk back.
Well, it's generally an early morning start. We'll start, 5:30 in the morning, something like that, because you want to bring everything in while it's cool.
Right.
Ask for volunteers and makes it more fun for everyone to experience that.
And I think everybody that drinks wine, I think you should experience a pruning of vines at least once and harvest. Just make sure you don't cut your finger.
Yeah, that's actually one of our requirements is that you leave with all your digits that you shut up with.
So, a little funny story. My very first harvest I did when I started this wine journey and stuff, out at the edge of the lake, they were harvesting their Grenache. They're going to make the rosé Grenache. And I'm sitting out there and I'm harvesting. I'm doing a good job. Got some nice big clusters going on and filling in a 5-gallon bucket. And they come by and pick up the buckets and drop off new ones. Well, I was like, you know what? This is going pretty good. So I stuck my AirPods in and I went off into a whole different world. And I'm sitting there just clip, 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 clip. That wasn't good. I mean, I literally took the side of my finger. So I walked up there and Chris McIntosh, the winemaker, he goes, I knew you was going to be the first one to cut yourself.
Yeah.
So, but people, they should. I mean, it's literally, it's fun. It's therapeutic. I enjoy doing it with a whole bunch of people. I've worked in a vineyard for a while and it's therapeutic. Yeah. But my problem is I've had heat exhaustion twice. So working it out in the heat, not good for me sometimes.
Oh yeah. It's definitely a challenge.
Oh, we have a guest here that just showed up.
And now I'm going to switch with Tom Reed, Doug's brother.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Matt. Hey, Tom. How's it going?
I'm doing well. Doing well. So sorry about the
you're good.
disruption.
This is just kind of a last minute, here we go.
Yeah, have a seat.
Nice.
Introduce yourself real quick. So go ahead and pull the microphone up to you, close to you.
Sure.
So that way we can hear you.
I'm Tom Reed. I'm Doug's brother and part of the three amigos here at Hawk Shadow that had the
Do y'all have the
childish, audacious idea of doing all this.
Yeah. It's no, we don't have 3 hats, but we probably should.
So which was the oldest?
I'm the old fart out of the group.
4 years. It's a visual sign that the joke is more about the miles, not the age, the years, perhaps.
That's fair. So okay, now out of the two of y'all, which one's the slave driver?
Boy, that just depends on the day.
Okay.
That's why it works so well, I think.
Okay.
But he is for sure the doer. I'm probably would be more associated with the talker.
Okay.
He's the doer.
Well, so Doug's been talking this whole time. He wouldn't let me give it right in edgewise, so we're going to...
I know better than that.
No, Doug is a great guy. I really love hearing his story. So now I want to hear your side of the story. Right?
Sure.
Quick. So where did your passion, before you got into wine, what was you doing?
Well, I my background's in aerospace engineering, and I've been working in the tech industry since 84. I left graduate school in Iowa, came to Texas because my brother was here. Mm-hmm. That was kind of a help. And also aerospace industry, you have an aerospace degree in Iowa, it's a ticket out of the state pretty much. Yeah. So Texas was one of those locations. So I came here. We both, mostly I transitioned to the technology industry relatively quick. And Doug and I found ourselves traveling to the Northern California Bay Area on a very regular basis, like every other week-ish kind of schedule. So we spent a lot of time out there, and we developed good friends in the area, and wine is a big part of Northern California, as you might imagine. And so wine became an interest of us, and we tasted a lot of wine and talked to a lot of people who were sort of like on the fringes of the industry, if you will, and came up with over, I'm sure, ethanol. It was wine-induced crazy ideas. We decided there's really no reason why we couldn't have wine in Texas that gave us the same joy that we found from other regions of the world. It didn't seem like there was any real impediment to that other than effort.
Right.
So obviously that's a very naive thought, but nonetheless, we said, let's give it a go.
Okay.
And so we did an initial planting and proved the fact that we were super naive and ignorant, and it failed. But that's how we learn.
Yeah, I think everybody does a vineyard the first time. They're like, yeah, we can do this. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That was definitely.
Yeah. You find things really are more challenging than they look on paper, for sure.
I would say through the whole journey of wine, I will just sort of circle back at, now with a little bit of years on us, looking back and realizing at every point we have seen the feeling as though we're cavemen poking in the dark with sticks when it comes to understanding biology and microbiology, and just how complicated and integral and amazing it is. And that is the core of wine. Yep. Wine is a growing wine problem. It's not a making wine problem typically. Right. So, we were constantly, slapped on the head with reality and understanding that whatever our intuition might have been, we're humans, that it's going to be wrong.
Yep.
So,
and it's interesting. You just made that correlation that, you can make wine all day long. If you can't grow the vines, you can't make the wine. And without the vines, that's the key point.
The vines are so key. And we spend so much time in vineyards because we get grapes from across the state up towards Lubbock and, all the way up into Canadian Texas, from the Ramp Vineyard up, way north in the Panhandle.
Okay.
So we spend a lot of time traveling the state, visiting these vineyards, and it's just so key to the quality of your product. Is you have to be there to taste those grapes. If you're not, you're going to make a mistake.
Yeah. Well, I actually had last night, I had a pretty interesting interaction with a guy from France. And so Picpoul Blanc is starting to take a big hold down in Texas.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just all of a sudden one day you saw one person have a Picpoul Blanc, and the next thing you know, every tasting room now has a Picpoul Blanc almost now. And a gentleman from France came in last night, and we have one. He going through the menu, and he goes, and I can't recreate his very thick French accent. He goes, Texas grows a Picpoul Blanc. And I'm like, yes, sir. And actually, we have some really good Picpouls. And he goes, when I was a kid growing up in France, in front of my house was the vineyard that grew most of the Picpoul Blancs in France. Again, if you can think of that very thick French accent, okay? So I poured him a little glass of it, and he looked at me and he goes, Texas does grow a good Picpoul Blanc.
It's very good. Yeah.
There's so much to be unwound about that. I think we've come to it's an early data point. It's not a resolution or a fact. But there's indicators, again, that our association with, one, grapes that may oftentimes be viewed in the world market as nascent are perhaps not nascent to us.
Yep.
And two, that our intuition should point us not to places that are close in geography to us, California, Washington, Oregon, but to places that have attributes that are more akin to what our attributes are. And those attributes are multidimensional, they're social, they're microbiological, they're weather, their soil, their the definition of terroir.
One of the greatest questions that I hear, and this is just anywhere going around drinking wine, people are like, Texas can grow grapes. Well, I mean, technically, we have every climate that you ever want to have in the United States. And we have almost some of the same terrain that Europe has. Yeah. So technically, we can grow anything. I mean, if we
if you go down to the lower vineyard, especially, which has more, like I said, more organic material from runoff, the kind of this gray, rocky soil down there actually has a lot of similarities to Bordeaux in some of its characteristics. So, we, and we deal with hailstorms. Guess what? Bordeaux deals with hailstorms all the time as well. So it's, and the climate, weather, all of that. It's all challenging no matter where you are.
Right. Yeah. But, that's probably one of the things I love about us here in Texas is that, you tell us we can't do something, we're going to do it. Just like you said, you tell an engineer, don't do it. He's going to figure a way how to do it,
Yeah.
The one thing that actually starting to fascinate me quite a bit is, a lot of grapevines don't need a lot of water, but now you've got these hybrids like Blanc de Bois and Black Spanish that are growing amazingly great in East Texas. But there's some people over in West Texas growing it, and it's just a whole different beast out there because it's just not getting all the water that it needs that it would get over here. In fact, actually, there's a winery in Stephenville who is growing Blanc de Bois out there, and it tastes completely day and night difference from getting it from East Texas. Oh, yeah. It's just it's crazy. And she actually does it unfiltered, and it tastes like an apricot.
Yeah,
wow. Yeah. So it's crazy.
I imagine in my weirdo brain that we're still 50 or 100 years away from having some definitive understanding of the sort of like macro idea of what Texas is. But all these data points that you've indicated and that we see today are all, I think, positive indicators that there's something there. We just don't know what it is quite yet, but there is a there.
And then once we do think we've got to figure it out, Mother Nature throws in a big old fat curveball.
Yes. No,
there is always those.
And that's part of the equation. Yeah. Like there is very, very few wine regions, okay. You could maybe argue the outlier is South Australia and Napa of these like idealistic sort of conditional places for growing grapes, but no other place where grapes have sort of like stuck in humanity. Right. Is there an ideal anything, as Doug points out, in Bordeaux, they are not sort of like sitting on their laurels. They are looking at replanting. They have been through hell, oftentimes many vintages are, in there, the cost of failure is significantly higher than it is here, if I could say, but they do it. That's just the life of wine.
Yeah. So we're going to switch gears a little bit. We're getting back to a little bit of history now because we kind of diverse there. I told you that what happened.
Yeah.
We'll pull everything back into circle now. So we get your tasting room here. We got your vineyard all planted now, and you got your grapes growing. Now you had to come up with a name. How did you come up with that? And I love the story for Hawk Shadow. So how did you come up with Hawk Shadow?
So Hawk Shadow was a horse so my wife worked for Lockheed as well. And a friend of hers at Lockheed had a friend who needed to get rid of a horse. And of course, my wife has never known a horse she didn't like. So we ended up acquiring Hawk Shadow.
Okay.
That was his name when we got him. He was a yearling stallion still at that point, quarter horse. And so unfortunately, we raised him as this like giant lapdog. He kind of instinctively headed that way anyway. Okay. But I'm sure it didn't help. But he was just this, he never knew a stranger. He was like the dog that would walk up to all the visitors and lick and stay high. Well, he was just a 1,200 pound horse that did the same thing. And so there was, you never knew a stranger. He would come in the house, he would knock on the door. So our label is actually a picture of him at the front door of our house where he would come up and he would poke on the glass and knock on that and going, "Hey, I think it's time to eat. Can we go play? There's a ball game on I'd like to watch. Could I come in and watch TV a little bit?"
That's great.
Anyway, he had this great personality, And when we were exploring all the possibilities for names and stuff like that, so this gets back to actually originally naming the vineyard. And so we kicked around a lot of different options. And the one that we kept coming back with, we went through all of the normal things, which are your names and that kind of stuff. And none of them were kind of as exciting and brought kind of the place together as much as he did. And so 2004, actually formed Hawk Shadow Vineyard LLC with Tom and my brother-in-law Chip. So that's the three of us. And so we put the vineyard in 2005. And then in 2010, I formed Hawk Shadow LLC, which is the parent company for the winery itself.
Okay.
And then with Tom and Chip as well. And then so we started the whole winery side of things.
Nice.
But it was all kind of based on just this kind of very unforgettable horse.
Well,
so he was a member of the family, so to speak.
Absolutely.
Yes. And our pets, whether we call them our pets or whatever you want to call them, all have a unique personality. And I was telling you this before we started the show. My stepmom used to rescue horses. So she had a barrel horse and a Shetland pony. Now, the Shetland pony was completely housebroken. He would come in the house. When he needed to go to the bathroom, he would go to the back door. They will let him out. He does his business. He comes back in and he'll lay at their feet while they're sitting on the recliner, or he'll try getting the recliner. And my dad's like, nope, that ain't going to happen. But he was very much housebroken. And then they also had a barrel horse named Jethro. Now, there's a reason why he was called Jethro. Okay. So if he liked you, he would put his head on your shoulder right here and he will belch in your face. Yeah. He would just rip it. Okay. Yeah. But if he didn't like you, he would turn around and lift his tail and he would pass some gas on you. And so one day I saddled him up because he was an older barrel horse. He was retired. And the property my stepmom and my dad had, you opened the gate and you went into the big pasture. Well, when they opened that gate, his instinct said take off. I was not ready for it. So I was grabbing hold of the horns and I was holding on for dear life. And he took off and he took a 90-degree turn and then took another 90-degree turn. And all of a sudden he deep breath in and here I go sideways. And from that point forward, he did not like me anymore.
It's having the cinch tight enough to keep the saddle there is a really good thing.
I wasn't expected to run, but I had it pulled tight enough that again we were going to walk, we weren't going to run. I wasn't expecting him to open the gate and take off. I was not expecting that, but it was his instinct. That's what he did all his life, And so, going forward from that point forward, he did not like me. And every time I went up to the fence, he would always stick his tail on my shoulder. And I'm like, I got to get out of the way now.
That's an awesome story.
They do have that. Yeah. And being a barrel horse, he's, he was a barrel horse?
Yeah, he was a barrel horse.
Okay. Yeah. So they're used to taking off and running a pretty good place.
Oh, yeah.
I sense a horse stories podcast in the future here. Yeah, I think there's a bunch of horse stories that can happen in the.
Well, and I'll tell you this one last horse story, and then we'll get back on the wine stuff. My stepmom and my dad found a Clydesdale or Belgium up in Washington State that the owners just abandoned him out there. And he started getting a hoof rot really, really bad. And so they brought him here to Texas and he was like 1,200 pounds underweight. So they were feeding him, like they were just keeping him fed all the time. The farrier came out there and cleaned his hooves up and put shoes on him and stuff so he can start getting healthy. And then they found out he had cancer. So they sent him off over to Missouri to an Amish community that did help with the cancer treatments and stuff. And they got his coat really shiny, got his tail back again. And they got him. He was a proud horse. He was sitting on the top of the stock tanks and he would just stand there and you could see he was a proud horse. So they bring him home. They said that we slowed the cancer down enough where he can, you can enjoy him for a while longer. They hadn't had him a week yet. And they were out, he was out in the pasture and had a really bad lightning storm and lightning struck and killed him.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm
wow.
like,
Yeah.
you know,
What a story.
Here they are. They've saved him from dying of starvation, hoof rot. And then they bring him in. They kind of slow the cancer down. And then all of a sudden lightning strikes and kills him. But that horse, he struggled up to that point till they rescued him. But he was a big, proud horse. And it was funny watching the pecking order out in the pasture because they had I think 15 or 16 other horses. Mm-hmm. And some of them would try to do the little pecking order with him. And he's like, nope, not with me, you're not.
Yeah, you know who's in charge.
Exactly. Sure. I'm bigger than you. Yeah. So let's talk about wine now. You know, we got a name now and you decided, hey, we're going to make some wine now. So what was your first varietal that y'all actually decided to make?
So our first wine we made in 2011. Because we had the vineyard already planted. Mm-hmm. So we harvested our first estate wine in 11. And that was really ended up being a combination of all the varietals we had planted, which mm-hmm. were Grenache, Syrah, Mourvedre, some Tempranillo, and some Sangiovese. Oh. And so we actually just blended them just to see what they would do together because we didn't have a whole lot. Mm-hmm. And we used we used Hungarian oak that year. Excuse me for just a second.
I'll take over. How about that? Yeah. So our first harvest was, so there were two things that we had going on. One, we realized in the vineyard that our production was going to be mm-hmm. sort of extremely low. We had 5-ish acres planted at that point. And that first round was really going to be a small harvest. Mm-hmm. We that was in the cards for us and has been since. So it was going to be we had grapes planted that we had some, naive belief system in that they could be field blended, right. And we did. So they shockingly enough is different as the bud break and what you would imagine the harvest cycle would be for a Mourvedre versus say Tempranillo mm-hmm. or Sangio. They actually were close enough aligned, and since it's our own property and our own estate, we can do very rapid sort of like harvest into production sort of moves. Right. We decided to just field blend the vineyard, and that became our inaugural wine. It was a red. It was just called, we had to come up with a name, of course, for that. So it was, being just idiots, we chose HSV, which is Hawk Shadow Vineyard. Later, healthcare providers came to us with a smirk on their face and said, there's another 3-letter acronym that HSV represents. And we thought, oh, well, anyway. Okay, I have something about it. Oh, yeah. Herpes simplex virus. So, yes. Yeah.
I don't know if I want to drink that now.
Unintended consequences of that. But that wine was still to this date, I think it set a bar for us. It was a gift that it just turned out well. We had two things happened out of that. One was a recognition that we don't know what we're doing. It was a firm, we didn't think we did, but it was proof we didn't. Right. And two, just how important community in the wine industry is. Mm-hmm. So everybody we knew. So Chris Brundrock came over when we had some issues with worries that weren't really issues, but worries during fermentation. It's like, man, this stuff is really kicking off, and is it supposed to smell like this? Mm-hmm. During fermentation, it's like, oh yeah, just get in and be a little bit more aggressive with your punch downs and get more oxygen on it. It's just pretty normal thing. Don't worry about it. Yeah. And so we had all that, and it also was a reason for us to realize that you need to sort of patiently let the wine develop and become what it's going to be. You don't really have a say over that, to be honest with you. You can agree with it. You can coax it along. You can just make sure that you're a good steward and you don't screw it up. Right. But don't think you have here's the end point that I want to hit. No matter what, we're going to hit that end point. Right. That was a big learning thing. Yeah. So great wine. It was predominantly Sangiovese with Grenache Syrah, tiny amounts of Sangiovese Syrah with a little bit of Mourvedre, a little bit of Grenache, and a little bit of Tempranillo. So it's kind of a Sangiovese co-fermented blend.
Sitting here thinking about that, I'm just kind of curious, what kind of taste did it actually come out with?
It was very Sangio in a sense, but it also portrayed like there was the sort of like dusty, dirty dirt in a good way sort of flavors that Sangio portrays itself in Italy. It was very, very reminiscent of that. It was very biological. Like it had beautiful complexity to it. It wasn't just, I don't know, just sort of simple in a way. And it from the get-go, it was never really a simple wine.
Right.
And we have lots of like crackerjack ideas of like why that is, but predominantly I think when you have a shorter growing season and you have a more oppressive growth environment, what it seems like is the impacts on the grapes and their profile of flavor is not uniform.
Right.
Nothing is ever just simple up into the right. So, for example, more outlier characteristics of grapes seem to be more suppressed or more impacted by the environment than some of the more nascent qualities that you'll see.
Right.
So sort of like, if you will, my analogy is music, and that is that, what you're doing is you're listening to an orchestra play, and you're just turning down the volume of the mic that's on the soloist as part of the orchestra, and you get to hear more of the other pieces of the orchestra play as a result of that, or you perceive more of that.
Okay.
And that seemed to be kind of like characteristically what we saw in that very first wine, and it seems, in my mind, to be equally true today. So Picpoul is a good example. Like Picpoul, not necessarily something that is going to be a varietal, highly well-known and just like, of course, you should just make a varietal wine out of Picpoul.
Right.
It was always a blending component.
Yep.
In Texas, no. Like the things that might have made it less obvious as a varietal wine in other places make it an obvious choice, perhaps in Texas, because we might take that outlying characteristic. Riesling is another good example. A flower shop is suppressed. So now you get to actually enjoy that beautiful citrus element, the fruit, the white fruit flavors that come through in it, the balance, if you will, of Riesling that isn't so obvious in a more ideal growing place.
Well, and you make a really great conversation piece about that, Roussanne and Marsanne. When you see both of them, you actually see them together in a blend. But Texas does such a good job on both of them. They've become now their own little standalone, and they're a blending grape as well. That's what they're made for. They were made for blending, but not for Texas.
Yeah,
we did a single varietals, and there has been some really good Roussanne that I've drank and really good Marsanne I've drank. And I'm sitting there thinking like, they blend these together, and oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's so much to learn from other places in the world, and there's so much to realize that when you learn from all these places and the stories are different, sometimes the grape name, even though it's genetically the same grape, has a different name. There's a reason behind that. They weren't just being stubborn or ignorant people. It was like, no, it was different in this place than it was 10 kilometers away.
Oh, yeah.
And so our difference in Texas is still, again, we're maybe 50 years away from really identifying correctly what it is. But the indicators today seem to be, we should recognize that we're about this ensemble of characteristic in wine and not necessarily this outlier. And if there's a grape that sort of like always needed a blending component because of that outlier, there might be a possibility that we don't need to do that blending here.
Right.
We still need to blend, but for different reasons here than they might in other areas.
Yeah. So we're talking about blending and stuff. So we're sitting here in y'all's barrel room. So y'all said Hungarian oak is what you're using.
Yeah.
Is that primarily what y'all use, or y'all?
No.
I mean, the new trend now is actually Texas oak now. Have y'all started that yet?
No, we have not. No.
Man, who was it? Dr. Becker.
Yeah.
I think Becker Vineyards and one other winery is actually using Texas oak now, which I'm actually really curious about that.
Yeah.
And then Michael Ross, Tim Drake is using Russian oak out there.
Yeah.
And so, so doing that, and then you taste French oak, and then you taste the Hungarian and Argentinian oak. Is that Argentinian oak or It's a South American oak. I can't remember what it is. Maybe
could be. So makes sense.
You get all these different oaks and you get all these different profiles. Now, my curiosity is, can we just take all this oak and do every other stave with every one of them and see what happens?
Cooperage will undoubtedly end up that way. We are still figuring out. Our own barrel regiment has definitely changed over the, 14 years that we've been, producing production wine. And we're shifting more to slightly tighter grained barrels and predominantly French right now, mostly just by trying to be super objective and data driven about it. Okay. Just like, what do we see? We have experimented with nearly everything. And in one indicator that we've tried to be is look at some of the what is the connection between the French barrel that seems to be good, the Hungarian barrel. If we were to look at Russian barrels, or we look at Missouri versus Minnesota, or we look Arkansas, or we look wherever, like there's a data point in the wine world that says this is a good thing. They all do. And there's also a data point that says, no, it's not a good thing. So it's like the location may not be it. However, the tightness of the grain may in fact be that. They're all white oak. Okay, right. We know that. That's good. There's attributes that tree is the right thing for spirits and wine. Mm-hmm. Now the location, we're still figuring that out. But it seems like for us, because we have a cellar, because we do longer barrel regiments, that looking towards grains that are tighter, that are not as impactful, are the right thing. Right. So wherever those happen to be, that means that's in today, the world's been flattened by cooperages, by everything in the industry. So a cooperage in one location is sourcing wood from the rest of the world, right, and vice versa. So you just kind of got to get out there and do some data gathering of your own and see. But today we are predominantly French.
Okay,
is nice. What we do.
Well, I've definitely learned in my journey in this whole wine industry is that I found that sometimes I love a varietal in a Hungarian oak versus a French oak. Or then you drink another varietal and you're like, oh man, I like this in a French better than a Hungarian, sure, or whatever, whatever oak you want to call it. And it's fascinating that when you drink something like that and you taste the different oaks and you're like, I really did like that one better over here than I did over here.
Yeah.
I found that exactly. For example, our whites and rosés are pretty exclusively done in Hungarian oak. Oh. And Hungarian oak just brings this kind of spice side to it that really helps for those versus the reds, which are primarily more either American oak for Tempranillo or in this case, we're moving more towards hybrids. But and then for everything else is mostly all French oak. We use primarily Tranche Forest, French oak, so it's very tight grained.
Interesting.
The French American hybrids, so they're French heads, American stays, and then we have the heads toasted. Okay. I think they all bring something to the equation. And it can, like you were describing, can dramatically make the difference in how the wine comes out.
And talking about toasting also, I was telling people how they toast these barrels. And then there's different levels of toast. And those different levels actually bring different flavors. And it's funny when you tell that to people, they give you this deer in the headlight look like, how does that work? Because the more you char it, the more you're releasing flavors out of it. And people don't understand. And it actually, honestly, for me, when I first started doing this, I didn't quite understand it either until I started reading about it more. And so when you do a light toast, you're releasing certain tasting notes, and you char a little bit more, you're releasing different other ones, and then you char a little bit more and you get more. And it's actually fascinating, the science behind that. And I'm just kind of curious, again, like any kind of food we eat nowadays, who decided it's like, you know what? I'm going to pick this oyster up and I'm going to eat it. Not knowing they're going to die. Who decided they're going to char a barrel and say, what, this is going to change the taste of this wine?
Yeah, it's hard to say.
Yeah,
but in Texas, barbecue is everything. So I oftentimes relate it to barbecue in that sense. We cooked on a barbecue team for a number of years. But you never use oak that hasn't been dried for at least 2 to 3 years. Because there's certain, drying and enzymatic activities that are important to that. Same thing is true in barrels. Like all of our barrels are 36-month dried oak, which makes a lot of difference. You can get 24 to 36 to 48, but 24 to me leaves a harsher side to where 36-month dried brings a softness and a roundness to that.
Okay, nice. Well,
I would just add one more thing on the barrels. As much as I'm just, I'm the doubter, Thomas, right, in my name. So I will say on the barrel side, as much as we talk about flavoring as a component of the barrels, the chemistry and microbiological support system that a barrel offers in a cellar. So think of it as the micro-oxtranspiration and the water and ethanol evaporative qualities of the barrel is super important. Like that drying, that tightness of grain, the age of the tree, where it was grown has a lot to do with what is the transport rate of molecular level oxygen into the wine, and what is the evaporative, and along with the room environment. Obviously, in our case, we have a beautiful one in the cellar.
Yeah, amazing.
That's a huge component of what a barrel really does.
Nice.
And that's why we see, whether it's a new barrel or it's a neutral barrel or it's a 1-year barrel, that they all have slightly different things, but they all have a very common trait, and that is that transport rate that we provide over the maturation process of development process, really, of wine. So there's a lot of variables at play.
A lot of science, lots and lots of science.
Definitely.
It's the merging of science and art for sure.
Yep. Well, we're coming to the end of the first half of the show. Is there anything that I didn't cover that y'all want to talk about?
Gosh, it's hard to say. Sorry, I had to step out.
No, you're good.
Yeah.
But, I do think that, aging wine, specifically in barrels. So we do some of our wine aging a little bit longer. And I think that really helps bring, a complexity and balance to a wine. And so I think that's a really important facet to the industry itself.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And I would just add, how wonderful is it to be making wine in Texas? It really is a great thing. We have, it's a place where independence of thought in viewpoints are cherished and they're supported. We don't have a provenance that we have to portray to the rest of the world and be careful of, and like it sort of like socially normed to. And in wine, at the sort of like evolutionary state we are as a wine region, I feel like that is critically important to our success, that everybody's doing different things and we all think it's great. We all share ideas. We all help and support each other. That's the reason why you do this. It's a horrible business model. You're crazy to try and do this as a retirement plan.
Right. Yeah. But this is not a retirement plan. This is a longevity plan.
It is. It is. And
it's all about passion.
Yes.
It is. And I will say that's the thing that links us to. That's the reason why, when a neighboring winery calls and says, my press is broken, can I borrow yours? Right. It's like there's never a hesitation to, of course you can. Well, can we bring it to you? Yeah.
Rusty up in Breaking Bud Vineyards up in Sadler, Texas, I believe it is. He actually came up with a word, and he's trying to coin it before I can, but it's called co-opetition. You're cooperating with each other, but you're also in competition with each other. And I thought that was a really great word to use because that's what we do here in Texas. We help each other out. And I'm kind of bash California, but it's everybody that I've talked to, and there's even a podcast out there about California wineries. They even bash each other on that. And I'm like, why? Why do you do that? Why don't you help each other out?
Yeah, I don't think it was always that way, by the way.
I don't think it was either. I think in the very beginning it wasn't. And now because the state is so saturated that they're literally fighting for competition.
Yeah,
fighting for customers.
It's kind of the evolution of that a little bit, yes.
So, yeah. Well, right quick, before we close the first half of the show, which is y'all fight over which one is going to do this. Let our listeners know where they can find y'all at on Facebook and also online and where you're located at.
Okay, we're in Dripping Springs at 7500 McGregor, just north of Dripping Springs. We're open 7 days a week, 11 to 5. And you can find us at hawkshadow.com. It's the 2 S's in there. You can get us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram as well. So we're available on all those platforms. And we're like I said, we do tastings. We'll do all kinds of events and stuff like that as well.
Awesome. Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to take a 5-10 minute little break, and we're going to come back. We're going to do like a little 5-10 minute segment.
Hi, this is Eric Beyer of Old Vine, Texas, a new winery tasting room featuring 100% Texas wines from wineries all over the state. We are located in Mansfield, Texas, inside of Ancora Event Center on Broad Street. We have weekly tastings, charcuterie board to enjoy, live music, and a new wine club. Go visit our website at oldvinetexas.com to sign up for our newsletter and learn more. Or you can find us on Facebook and Instagram at Old Vine Texas. We'll see you soon.
Welcome back, everybody, to We Know Texas Vino. This is the fun part of the show now. Well, actually, the first part was fun, but this is fun also. But it's the wine education part. I enjoy doing this because I think it's essential for people to learn about wine, because you can just pick up a glass of wine and start drinking it, but do you know everything that goes into it, why you do certain things? And I've found in my experience in this wine journey that people sometimes they are nervous about wine because I'm going to kind of bash California again. California has made wine pretentious and snobbery. And so I have found in my journey that people hunger to learn about wine. Why do you do certain things? And when they do that, they actually start enjoying and learning about wine more. So with this topic today, we're going to actually talk about the importance of swirling wine. What does it tell you and what does it do while you're swirling it? So who would like to go first?
Go for it.
Okay.
So go up on the microphone just a little bit.
Sure. So the importance of swirling wine. And first, I would just comment back to you. I think that is phenomenal what you're talking about. It's horrible when ego or pretension gets in the way of us enjoying or learning about life and doing things that are so important to us, and wine is. So everybody should be like a kid. They should be as curious and open and like they're inquisitive, and there's no wrong answer to anything. And so the idea of swirling wine just kind of it should come natural that there's a part of wine in the glass, the shape of the bowl of the glass. Mm-hmm. In this case, these stems. Doug chose and did an amazing job to try and optimize a stem for a tasting.
Right.
So choose a stem that's going to give you a little bit flatter, lower surface in the bowl, which gives you, for a small amount of wine, a bit more surface area. You'll see that the glass usually kind of like restricts a little bit towards the top in most glasses, so that the aromatics, the esters and the evaporative element of the wine is starting to sort of like sit in the bowl. They're going to be a little bit heavier molecules than everything else, so they're going to kind of stay in that bowl. And so getting your nose in and smelling that without swirling, just like right out of the bat, is a really good data point. Like that's your first thing. That's the what is the thing that the wine is when I haven't actually had much interaction with it yet. And then by swirling, you're going to agitate the air. You're going to create convective currents inside of there. And you're going to sort of like supercharge the aromatics of the wine as they come out. Like our taste and neural systems are amazingly complicated, but we say we smell things, we say we taste things. It's all shades of gray, right? So when we pull that back into the olfactory sensors that are down, far back into our nasal passages around where our throat is, there's so much joy and stimulation that can happen there that doesn't happen elsewhere in your sensory system. Right. And so swirling a glass is just a way of getting more joy out of the wine. You're going to just like get more of that wine into that olfactory location in your and into your brain that you couldn't get any other way.
Well, and you made a really good comment about the flatness of the bowl. And I never really noticed that until I was sitting here swirling this, and I was like, I can't get that big. I'm a big fan of the fan blade. Okay, when you swirl it, you get that nice big fan blade. And I'm sitting there swirling. Like, come on, fan blade. Come on, fan blade.
Yeah,
But
right.
I notice it's more of a flat swirl, and I get it now. It releases more when it's more flat.
It's not intuitive, like you said. Like we grew up with the beautiful Riedel tasting bowl, or this shape that over the years has always been great for drinking wine. But maybe it's not necessarily the ideal thing for tasting wine. So with an ounce or two in the glass, you're going to have a bowl shape in our case that really tries to heighten that experience without having, a bit more wine or a really big glass.
Right. And that's fascinating. Again, this is why I do this. It's for the education of it. Now, we'll talk about the smell right quick when it comes to smelling. Now, there's people have different ways of smelling things, okay? And one of the ways that I have been taught to smell is never smell where you put your mouth at, okay? Because you may have a jalapeno on your lip and you're going to smell it. Also, in Wine Folly actually says, this is actually pretty interesting, I didn't know this, is also proper manners to never drink, always drink from the same location, never change locations. And I found that pretty fascinating, but it's intuitive because if you drink from different parts of the glass, you're going to end up smelling your lips.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Especially in the case of women where you have, lipstick.
Lip gloss, whatever.
But yeah, lip gloss, lipstick. Yeah. It's like,
As a practical side of that, as winemakers, we often share glasses. So we're gonna thief one glass out of a barrel, and Doug's gonna taste it, Matt's gonna taste it, and Tom's gonna taste it. Right. So we always go to the same spot. So we can try not to spread germs any more than necessary.
Right. And then also, so we always know to drink it from the top of the glass. And I always tell everybody to put it on the bridge of your nose. Mm-hmm. Don't put it up on the top of your nose. Don't put it on the tip of your nose. Put it on the bridge because that's center and you get more smell of it. Now, I've noticed more lately of an action that I have in the last 6 years is people smelling at the side of their nose like y'all are doing. So is that because you're smelling out of your most prominent nostril? Because there are people that have a prominent nostril.
Yeah, but to me, more the side allows airflow into the glass. If you're in the middle, you're now blocking the airflow. And I want air to actually kind of go in there and interact with that.
Okay.
So I generally go one side or the other.
Okay.
Or the middle. I mean, you can, I would say, people should explore doing different things and just
what works for them,
seeing what works for you.
Right.
Where you kind of can get the most characteristics out of wine.
Okay. Well then, now we're smelling. What else do we do? Why do we swirl? Why do we swirl?
You tend to pick up the wine. So especially a wine that is just opened. In this particular case, this bottle was just open. Wines generally are, when they're just opened, they need to have a little bit of oxygen to them because that helps bring out some of the characteristics. The oxidation of a little bit of that is where the wine really starts to open up and express itself. And so by swirling it around, it provides that interaction of the air with the wine and allows it breathe a little bit more in the glass.
The colloidal structure of wine too, like the body of wine and how it feels in our mouth is a structural reaction. It's a physical reaction. And in swirling a wine, even though it may seem quite subtle, you start to recognize the difference between this and distilled water. Like it swirls differently because the wine is a colloid. It's not just water. It's not just ethanol. It's water, ethanol, and wine bits is little tiny marbles, circulating around inside of that. And the feel and literally the sort of like dynamics, the kinematics of the wine is something we can see. We can see it. And you literally, like, there's this like alcohol content thing about seeing legs in wine, red wines in particular, that, I don't see a lot of credence in trying to say something is good or bad. It just is what it is. And you can see it by swirling. Right. But even in a white, like you will see the shimmer and the gloss of the wine. And also I feel in my hand and I see in my eyes a measure of the viscosity of the wine just by swirling. So it's a whole body experience to me.
That was the next part I was figuring to go to, the viscosity of a wine. All right. So first off, the first smell I got off of this, I got a really heavy orange smell, like right off the bat. I mean, it was really, really heavy orange. But the more I swirled it, I started like getting lemongrass a little bit. Yeah. I used to work in a farm, so I got a little bit of alfalfa out of it.
Yeah, good for you. Right on. So you think about pyrazine and grapes and the sort of like variations of flavor dynamic that happen across it. But I think sorghum for us, that have been around farms a lot, is a very pronounced flavor, especially in the springtime, especially after rain. Like there, you will never forget what sorghum smells like. Oh yeah. And I think when you sort of look at the spectrum of how the vegetal quality of a grape shows up, sorghum should mostly it's not there because not that many people are familiar with it, but it should be because I agree with you. It is sorghum.
I will have to say this lays really nice and clean on my palate. Good. Like it's okay. So this is a Picpoul Blanc, right?
Yeah. Okay. So Picpoul Blanc, it is 4 months in Hungarian oak. Okay. So this was, I think this was new Hungarian. We might have used it. I'm trying to remember. It's either new or we did it for about 4 months the previous year. So virtually new. Okay. And again, for our whites and rosés, Hungarian oak brings just the right amount of spice and character to the wine. Picpoul Blanc can be a little bit, it's known for its acidity. It's known for being very acidic. Adding a little bit of the oak to it, I feel gives it more roundness, more balance. To me, the mouthfeel on this is where you can really tell the difference.
Okay, now correct me if I'm wrong on this. It kind of hit me on the finish because the finish. Okay, for me, it's a very long finish, and I kind of get like a little bit of white pepper on the very back end, maybe.
Yeah, and so some of that is a good portion of it actually is going to come out of the oak.
Interesting. I like that. It's just. This is why I like wine. I feel get all emotional now.
Yeah, same. That's why we're here, right?
Right. Exactly. Well, Tom, Doug, I really appreciate y'all's time today. And just, I know you're busy people, and it's production. It's harvest time and it's production time. And thank you for taking your time out of your day to spend with me and talk and let our listeners hear more about y'all's story. Real quick before we sign off on this, I'm going to talk about our sponsors. So obviously our first sponsor is Texas Wine Lover. Great little app. Almost every winery has one of these little tabletop flyers on it. It's a great way to find y'all's winery on there. I tell everybody when it comes into the tasting room, I tell them to scan it. I tell them there's 600, 700, 800 wineries in Texas, and this is the best way to find every one of them. Yeah. Great way to filter out. Also, it's a great way to plan a trip. I like to call it maximizing your wine drinking experience. And then my other sponsor is Old Vine Texas down in Mansfield, Texas. They bring in a lot of the hill country wines up there for the people who don't want to drive 4 hours to the hill country, and they get to go and drink and experience the hill country in North Texas.
Awesome.
great little experience. And actually, we had the Texas Wine Growers Association, which is how I found y'all, come up there for an industry night. And a lot of people from North Texas came up there and got a drink and talked to a lot of the Hill Country winemakers, which was fun. Enjoyed it. And then my last sponsor, and I actually forgot to bring this in because I wanted to show this on camera, but it's called a High Camp Flask. Y'all heard it?
I haven't.
Have not. Okay. So this is a great little contraption. So it looks like the old Coleman thermos. Okay. Both ends come off on a magnetic tops and turn to tumblers. It holds exactly a 750 milliliter bottle of wine, and it keeps it at the perfect temperature up to 24 hours.
Oh, cool.
I want one of those.
Yeah.
Now, I was very skeptical when I hear this. Okay. Like, okay, really? So they sent me one. I put a bottle of Barbera in it. We were out at Possum Kingdom Lake working on our cabin out there. I left this on purpose in the sun so that it would heat up. Left it out there for like 4 hours. And me and my stepdad went over there and I opened it up. And after you seal it, it actually makes a tight seal on it, an airtight seal. And then when you open it, you hear it go when you open it. And we poured a glass and it was still 70 degrees.
Oh, that's awesome.
I mean, how can you not go wrong with that?
Yeah. Everyone needs one of those.
There ain't no guarantees after 24 hours.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, we always sign off with wine quotes. And I had wine quotes. They're on my laptop in the other truck. So I had to come up with something really quick. And I only came up with one, unless y'all have one on top of your head. Well, the one that comes up to my mind all the time, and I love this one, where there's wine, there's life.
Well, I would say there's a lot of truth to that. It's, wine and passion. They're just, that's what makes it work.
Oh, yeah, 100%. 100%. Well, this is Will.
This is Tom.
This is Doug.
And this is We Know Texas Vino. Cheers.